Dr. King. And in another picture, they're sitting alone together. And the other picture is of a rabbi who we revere, and we also celebrate his life in this month of January. That's Rabbi Dr. Professor Abraham Joshua Heschel, who more than once and more than twice and more than double digits walked arm in arm with Dr. King. And in one of the marches, he said, "My feet are praying. My feet are praying." Well, we are praying, but we realize we have to do more than pray. We actually have to get out there and do something to help to transform this world. So we had in June our first conversation on race relationships. One of the things that we wanted to do at that time was to develop a relationship with an African American church. That has not fully happened yet, but I want to tell you that the person who is the chair of that group, Carol Gerson, has been working assiduously and meeting with her committee regularly in the pursuit of finding a partner. And I get all of the minutes of your meetings, Carol. So I know that you and the members of the committee are working so very hard. But we did have an opportunity a few months ago to meet the Reverend Hinsley and two dear and lovely members of his congregation. And it was clear to us that Reverend Hinsley so very much wanted to meet you, to meet us, and to begin a conversation tonight. And I think there is so much that we are ready to learn from the Reverend, so that we can learn and feel and hope and pray and do. So Carol, can I invite you to introduce for us our guest tonight, Reverend Kemperl Hinsley?
I'll be glad to. Thank you, Rabbi. And thank you, Reverend Hinsley, also for agreeing to speak with us tonight, to educate us, to rouse us on this very inspiring inauguration day, and also immediately following Martin Luther King's birthday earlier this week. So I have the privilege of introducing Reverend Hinsley to our group. Reverend Hinsley is a graduate, bachelor's from Morehouse College, master's in divinity from Princeton Theological Seminary, and a master's in diplomacy from Norwich University. We thank Reverend Hinsley, or that is Major Hinsley, for his 14 years of service, having received many awards from the United States Army as a chaplain officer. From 1998 to 2014, he was posted in Korea, Germany, Iraq, as well as across the United States, serving in diverse responsibilities such as Deputy Command Chaplain, Military Education Officer, and others. In addition to his accomplishments as a military chaplain, Reverend Hinsley has served AME churches, congregations in the Mid-Atlantic region since his ordination back in '95. Since June of 2018, he's been senior pastor at the New Bethel AME Church right over in Willow Grove, a church with over 100 years service to its community. In addition to offering a full calendar of Zoom services, as we do, and Bible studies, New Bethel AME has a commitment to social activism and youth engagement. I should also mention that Reverend Hinsley is an educator with the Burlington, New Jersey Township School District. We will see both his skills as a pastor and his skills as an educator tonight. So thank you, Reverend Hinsley, for responding so graciously and positively to our committee's request for guidance, education, inspiration. Reverend Hinsley.
All right, good evening to Rabbi Elliot Pearlstein, to Mrs. Carol Gerson. I would like to thank you for that introduction. To the congregants of the Ohev Shalom Synagogue of Bucks County, to Sister Arlene Gaskins, Dr. Trina Reed, and to my mother, Dr. Alice Hinsley, who are members and friends of New Bethel AME Church, and to any other congregants or members of New Bethel AME Church in Willow Grove who are present tonight, and to any community organizations represented tonight, and to all persons participating in this virtual gathering. I greet you tonight in the spirit of unity, in the spirit of love, in the spirit of peace and cooperation. Indeed, it is an honor and privilege to have been invited to speak to the congregants of Ohev Shalom regarding social justice issues or items impacting the present day African American community. And so tonight, I will share my observations about the various social justice issues that affect the present day Black community in America. Therefore, tonight, I want to speak or talk from the subject present day issues of social justice that impact the contemporary African American community. As I share with you my perspective or understanding of the many issues that are affecting the Black community in present day, I want to begin my address by referencing or discussing the historical impact of racism on people of color, namely African American people in America. It is my hope that the realities of history will give meaning and understanding to many of the modern day societal ills or challenges that are currently impacting the present day Black community. It is noted that between the years 1525 and 1866, 12.5 million people of African descent were kidnapped from Africa and sent to the Americas through the transatlantic slave trade, also known as the Middle Passage. Only 10.7 million African people survived the harrowing 2-month journey across the billowing, cold, and deep waters of the Atlantic. Their forced journey, or their forced migration, brought them to a land that was unknown to them and to a land filled with persons who desired to reduce their humanity. The Europeans who settled in America in the early 1600s brought along the African Black population whom they had enslaved. And slowly, as the white population settled and flourished in America, slavery rooted itself or grounded itself in the United States. The period from the years 1619 to 1865 witnessed a tremendously racist America, grossly harassing the African American populace. After the Civil War, several draconian or oppressive and harsh laws were drafted by the US government, which severely prejudiced the Black community. It was a sort of vicious competition among the Confederate states or Southern states of America on inflicting misery against their own population. The Ku Klux Klan, which was formed in 1867 as a secret organization, terrorized the African American community during the 19th century and well into the 20th century. This particular domestic terrorist group indulged in brutally murdering African Americans and anyone else, regardless of color or gender, who supported the Black community in America. On Easter Sunday, 13 April 1873, in Colfax, Louisiana, during the time of Reconstruction in America, approximately 150 African Americans were killed by white Southerners. That unfortunate and inhumane experience is known as the Colfax Massacre. The following year, in 1874, in Cousetta, Louisiana, a paramilitary organization known as the White League, composed of white Southern men, killed or murdered African Americans and other persons irrespective of color or gender who supported the upliftment of Black people in America. This particular organization even captured and murdered white American politicians and white American law enforcement officers who supported the cause for equal rights for Black people in then 19th century America. And these white American men from the South, who were members of the White League, were never brought to trial for their criminal acts. The massacres of 1873 and 1874 in some ways parallel what we witnessed on Wednesday, 6 January 2021 in Washington, D.C., when angry rioters desecrated the nation's Capitol building. The events of 1873 and 1874 are just some of the many events that contributed to discrimination and racism against Black people in America. Time will not permit me tonight to elaborate upon all the events that were aimed at dehumanizing people of color in America, but I do hope that the illustrations I mentioned will give substance to understanding the impact of racism and injustice on Black American life. In essence, the history of racism and maltreatment against Black people in America stems back to the 16th and 17th centuries. And today, 4 to 5 centuries later, that awful reality still lingers within the fabric or framework of American society. And the African American, as well as many other minorities who are categorized as Black and brown people, have experienced and are still experiencing the strong residue of the history and inequity of racism in America. Now, bearing that understanding in mind, let us fast forward or move forward to the years 2020 and 2021. Let us consider this evening some of the many realities or issues of social justice that are impacting or affecting the modern day Black community in America. Let us first consider tonight the realness of systemic racism. Systemic racism, also known as structural racism or institutional racism, pertains to systems and structures that have procedures and policies and processes that disadvantage Black and brown people in America, namely African Americans and Hispanic Americans. It is noted that systemic racism is a form of white supremacy in America. And white supremacy is the belief that white people are superior to those of other races and should have the opportunity to always dominate other races. The belief affirms the maintenance and defense of white power and white privilege. Systemic racism against Black people in America shows itself in the forms of police brutality, unfairness in the criminal justice system, unemployment, economic disparity, healthcare, educational opportunity, voter suppression, and many other forms of discrimination against people of color in American society. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Rayshard Brooks, Janisha Funwell, Trayvon Martin, Tanisha Anderson, Freddie Gray, Atiana Jefferson, Eric Garner, Gabriela Navarez, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown. Those are some of the many African Americans in this nation who were recently killed by law enforcement. It goes without question that law enforcement is needed in America to protect and safeguard the well-being of persons or citizens in society. However, law enforcement should not exploit or devalue the life or welfare of people of color in America. The Black Lives Matter movement in America began in 2013 as a response to police brutality against Black people in America. And after the acquittal of George Zimmerman, who shot and killed a young Black male named Trayvon Martin in 2012. The movement grew nationwide in 2014 after the deaths of Michael Brown and Eric Garner, two African American men. The Black Lives Matter movement originated to oppose police brutality and systemic racism that mainly affect the Black community in America. The criminal justice system has been no friend to the Black community in America. I say that because the rise of mass incarceration begins with excessive levels of police contact with African Americans. It is noted that African Americans were incarcerated in local jails at a rate 3.5 times that of non-Hispanic whites in the year 2016. It is also noted that courtroom prosecutors are more likely to charge people of color with crimes that carry heavier sentences than whites. African Americans, specifically Black men, are most exposed to the collateral consequences associated with a criminal record. In reference to the previous statement, it is noted African American job applicants, who are less likely to receive callbacks than whites to begin with, experience an even more pronounced discrimination related to a criminal record. Racial bias in the criminal justice system has negatively impacted the Black community because it has reduced or limited the opportunity for people of color to advance in American society. Unemployment in the African American community contributes to economic disparity for the African American in America. Unemployment in the Black community also reduces the chance to have helpful health care. Without employment, many African Americans have limited access to health benefits or health insurance. While it is true that COVID-19 has affected everyone in some way, the magnitude and nature of the impact has been anything but universal. Evidence to date suggests that Black and Hispanic workers face more economic and health insecurity from COVID-19 than white workers. It is noted that there are three main groups of workers in the COVID-19 economy. One, those who have lost their jobs and face economic insecurity. Two, those who are classified as essential workers and face health insecurity as a result. And three, those who are able to continue working from the safety of their homes. Unfortunately, Black workers are less likely to be found in the last group. During this current pandemic, African Americans have suffered record numbers of job losses. And as a result of their job losses, their health care benefits, their health insurance has been negatively affected. And because of the many inequities associated with the employment and the economic status of African Americans, those societal inequalities have contributed to gaps in healthcare insurance coverage. Those societal inequalities have contributed to limited access to healthcare services, and those inequalities have contributed to even poorer health outcomes among persons or individuals in the African American community. African Americans have endured racism within American society for hundreds of years. Studies conducted over time have been consistent in proving that racism not only impacts social stratification or social classification, but also the ability of African Americans to be healthy, both mentally and physically. This burden, a burden that is indeed inescapable for Black and brown people in this country, causes African Americans to die prematurely and experience chronic illnesses and mental health changes at higher rates than that of white Americans. Unemployment, economic disparity, and healthcare are issues or items of social justice that affect the modern day African American community, that impact the well-being or welfare of Black people in America. Voter suppression in the African American community and the opportunity to seek a solid education at all levels of the academic spectrum are issues of social justice that impact the present day Black community in America. Voting is the language of American democracy. The ability to participate in civic life, to have a voice in choosing the elected officials whose decisions impact our lives, families, and communities, is at the core of what it means to be American. However, not all Americans are able to fully participate. For generations, people of color have fought against multiple discriminatory barriers to the ballot, from poll taxes to Jim Crow laws to voter suppression. These barriers continue to wrongfully deny African American voters access to the polls. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed to ensure that state and local governments do not deny American citizens the equal right to vote based on their race, color, or membership in a minority language group. Despite these expansions and efforts to make the voting process more inclusive, discriminatory barriers persist in the form of laws limiting voter access, hour-long lines at poll locations, broken and dysfunctional equipment, and the lack of properly trained election administrators. Yet another danger in the age of social media are targeted misinformation campaigns that continue to undermine election integrity. It is noted that due to a lack of action to protect voters against COVID-19, far too many people were forced to choose between their health and their right to vote. That particular concern or observation has been discussed in the African American community. Impediments of discrimination are roadblocks that seek to cripple or impair the opportunity for people of color to exercise their privilege to vote must be eliminated. Altogether, all forms of modern voter suppression must be dismantled. Education is key or fundamental to forward movement in life. Malcolm X stated, "Education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today." Maya Angelou stated, "Education breeds confidence, confidence breeds hope, and hope breeds peace." It is noted that embedded racial inequities produce unequal opportunities for educational success. In America, systemic policies, practices, and stereotypes work against children or youth of color, to affect their opportunity for achieving educational success. Because of race and class segregation and its relationship to local school revenues, students in high poverty, racially segregated schools are not exposed to a high quality curriculum, high qualified teachers, or important social networks as often as students in wealthier, predominantly white schools. In America, the government at the local, state, and federal levels must work to ensure that African Americans and other minorities in American society are given the opportunity to be exposed to beneficial educational opportunities that open the avenue and doors toward personal progress and achievement. In conclusion, let me say that efforts toward social equality and social justice for African Americans is an ongoing or continual process. Issues of social justice, such as systemic or structural racism, unemployment in the Black community, problems with healthcare security, economic disparities in terms of financial opportunity for Black Americans, voter suppression, limited educational resources, and inequity against Black and brown people in the criminal justice system must be put to an end. In the present day United States, there are still social, political, and economic barriers that impede success in the Black community. And I'm convinced that changing the very structure of American society is the primary requirement for African Americans to live in peace and to live in security. Thank you, and blessings to each of you.
Our thanks to Reverend Hinsley. We're going to open this up now for questions to the Reverend and an opportunity to discourse with him. I just want to make it clear to the Reverend and to our other guests tonight, this is a very small group within our entire synagogue community at OF Shalom. Those who were invited here tonight were those who were at our first meeting in June. So we wanted them to have an opportunity to have a first meeting with Reverend Hinsley. Much of the congregation has not been alerted yet to even this gathering tonight. So I hope that in the future, Reverend, that many more in our community would have an opportunity to learn from you as we have surely tonight. So, I guess if you go like this, we'll see you, and we can use the old-fashioned method of raising your hand, and you'll have an opportunity to ask a question or offer a comment to the Reverend. So whoever would like to go first. Okay, who wants to go second? Okay, Denise Colbert. Denise.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Reverend Hinsley. I'm wondering what we can do as white Americans to help in the effort. I personally am thinking of various organizations, maybe the NAACP. Are there others that you would recommend for us?
Yes. There are others, of course. As you mentioned, the NAACP. Also, as well as we have organizations that focus on, as it pertains to historically Black colleges and universities. Reaching out to historically Black colleges and universities, and there are a number of those universities throughout our nation. But if you were to reach out to some of our what we call HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities throughout our nation, they could definitely assist you as it pertains to connecting with other organizations that can be helpful in terms of developing a relationship with the African American community. And some of those universities or colleges are, of course, Morehouse College, where I graduated some time ago, Spelman College, Tuskegee University, Alabama A&M. There are a number of Black colleges that you could reach out to that would be able to, that you could partner with, that would be very helpful in the process of moving forward.
Thank you. Good suggestion.
And let me mention Howard University, the alma mater
That's
of
right.
our new vice president.
That
God bless
absolutely
her.
correct. That's correct. That's correct.
Next comment or question to the Reverend? Yeah, Harvey Canner. Harv. Unmute, Harv. Now turn up your volume, Harv.
Sorry.
Okay.
Reverend, being that you were a member of the military for so many years, what is happening within the military as far as discrimination?
Well, I have been separated from the military now for, I completed my service in November of 2014, which has basically been a little over 6 years ago. But I will say this, given my experience during the time that I was in the Army from 1998 up until 2014, you know, as I referenced the whole idea of systemic racism or structural racism, institutional racism. And unfortunately, that reality exists in the military at current. I do know around the time that I was in the Army, we were going through where the Army at that time was drawing down because the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq had ended. And the understanding was that there were a lot of African American officers who were being discriminated against in terms of evaluation reports and things of that nature, where it limited their opportunity to progress to higher ranks, lieutenant colonel, colonel, and onward. And that was something that was investigated, I would say, definitely around the time that I was in the service or in the Army. And it's something that is still being investigated at present. And unfortunately, that reality exists within the military. But there are military senior leadership, as we would say in the Army. There are senior leaders in the military who are attempting to address this ongoing issue. It's been an issue that has been going on ever since African Americans were able to join the military back in since 1948, where there was an executive order signed by then President Truman to desegregate the military. So in terms of all branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, all branches. But this is a continual problem, but it is being currently and has been addressed and is currently being addressed within the armed services right now. It's an ongoing piece.
So whoever has the next question. Reverend, let me just ask you a question. First of all, we have reason to celebrate together and to wish each other a hearty congratulations. In the election in Georgia, just so very recently and today, there were 3 new senators that were sworn in by Vice President Kamala Harris, a African-American preacher, as yourself, a Jewish young man, and a Latino from the great state of California. But we shared the state of Georgia together. Does that give you a sense that a new day has come to the United States? That voter suppression can become something of the past? And it is, in fact, as I said, a new day, or is it really the same old, same old?
I think that with the election of those 3 individuals that you referenced there, one happens to be my classmate, Reverend Dr. Warnock. He was 2 years ahead of me when I was when we were in college at Morehouse. Dr. Warnock pastored Ebenezer, so he's a classmate of mine, and I do know him. But I would say that it creates a sense of hope, as we move forward. I think with all of us witnessing the inauguration today, in Washington D.C., seeing the first African American woman be serve or as a vice president of the United States, also having Asian roots, Asian American roots, being of descent in that respect, and I think that all of that shows or points toward a brighter future. But I think that in terms of the reality of voter suppression, in terms of minority communities throughout our nation, I think that is going to continue to be an ongoing battle. I don't think that's something that's just going to end immediately. I think there's going to have to be continual work in terms of secular organizations, such as, of course, as the government, as well as religious institutions coming together and banding together. And I think we saw that there, of course, in Georgia, in terms of the church, as well as secular organizations coming together to ensure that minorities got out and voted. I do think that it does indicate that we're moving in a more positive direction, compared to 50 or more years ago. But I still believe that that work still has to be done in that particular respect.
Anne Berlin.
Hi. I would like to add to what Reverend Hinsley said. My daughter lives in Georgia, and she said that the Georgians, the people in charge, are trying to increase voter suppression by passing certain laws now. So I would say that we need to always be vigilant, because though it might appear hopeful now because of everything that was accomplished with Stacey Abrams and her organization, which did a magnificent job, they're still trying to pass laws to have voter suppression everywhere. And I think even though things look hopeful, and obviously today's inauguration is an example of that, we still have to remain vigilant and be aware and do what we can to stop things that are happening that are detrimental for everybody.
Well, thanks, Anne. Thank you. Next.
Hey, Rabbi.
Bernie.
Hi. Yeah, I don't know if this was mentioned before, but I got on late. I was on a Zoom call with our school kids. But I think, Reverend, you got to be pretty proud of the Black community all over the country, because I think that their vote helped get rid of the madness that we've had for the last 5 years. And so I think all of us are pretty thankful that that the vote got out, even with all the suppression techniques that were being tried. And so, great deal of thanks. That we can have some positivity from now on.
I would concur with that observation. I agree with you there, definitely.
Well, I think many of us would say that Joe Biden is absolutely the right person for this time. The right. When we saw all of the candidates lining up on the stage, Joe Biden is the right person for this time. And it really, the thanks goes to a congressman from South Carolina that really kept the election going for Joe Biden and having him see through it to victory. So yeah, we owe a lot to the African American community. Bernie, no question, no question.
And to just to add a bit to what you said there, Rabbi, those of you who had the opportunity to view or watch the inauguration on today, the gentleman that presented the benediction today, Reverend Dr. Sylvester Beeman, is a AME pastor. I know him. Many of my other congregants know Dr. Beeman, and he pastors at Bethel AME Church there in Wilmington, Delaware, and he is personal friends. For the past 30 years, he's been personal friends with President Biden. So I do believe, just to add to the comment you made, Rabbi, and the gentleman down here, Mr. Polak, I believe. My apologies if I mispronounced your name there, but I do believe that the new cabinet that President Biden has shows diversity in terms of the way our nation looks now as it pertains to contemporary society, Black and brown people together, white and Black, Asian, Hispanic. He is open-minded enough to embrace the significance of cultural diversity. So I think that's a very good thing as we move forward here in America. I definitely believe this is a new day, and as I watched Air Force One leave Andrews Air Force Base with the former President Trump, I said to myself, yes, a new day has begun.
Definitely.
Mimi.
Yes, I just wanted to briefly add on to what Anne mentioned earlier, where she said we have to be very vigilant about voter suppression because it's going to continue. It's not going to just stop. It's going to continue because everybody just looks for the next election, which happens 2 years later. Because, you know, what's affected, of course, is the entire House of Representatives all the time and a third of the Senate. But besides that, the other problem that needs to be addressed is that of gerrymandering. I don't know as much about it as I should, but again, the redistricting of various parts of states and counties and cities, it's all done to sway the vote. And now that the census has just been finished, this is the time where a lot of the states are going to come ahead and start working on changing the lines. And this is all not going to be good for Black communities, for brown communities, for a lot of different peoples.
Eileen Shine. Eileen.
Reverend, what recommendations do you have for the public school systems? What can we do in terms of teaching and curriculum that you would recommend to help change what the system is?
Okay, thank you for that particular question. I'll speak using my experience here in New Jersey in the Burlington Township School District where I currently serve. I know one of the things that we are currently doing right now is ensuring that minority students, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, are when it comes to the classroom and the district where I am. We have about, I believe, 5 schools in that district. I'm at a middle school this year, but within the district. But we are trying to ensure that our minority students are recognized, that they are supported, that they are encouraged. Of course, we let them know, as we do all the students there, that you are responsible as a student for completing your assignments and getting things done in that respect, and being mindful of how you conduct yourself. But so we let them know that that deals with the individual person, but at the same time, and that they have a responsibility to self to do that. But at the same time, we do realize the school district that I'm in, we have I'll just be quite frank here, we have a very limited amount of African American administrators in terms of educators where I am, and that's from the administration down to the classroom, and it is a predominantly white American school district. So it's a very limited amount of minorities there in the school district. So we try to, in a very caring and in a very compassionate manner, affirm our minority students, but not to the extent of having them say, well, because I'm a minority, that I'm going to be, treated differently, and so that means that I can do whatever and I'll still be able to get by. No, we don't try to present that type of false interpretation or understanding. They still have to be accountable, in other words, or responsible, but we still try to nurture them by emphasizing their significance or their importance within the school district or school body.
Great. Leslie?
Yeah, I think a lot of us in this group put our time in for Joe Biden and for the Georgia elections. We can't be too complacent. I believe Reverend Warnock is only, I think his Senate term only is 2 years. And so I think we have to keep up this vigilance when he comes up for reelection for a 6-year term, that the work is still to be done.
I definitely agree with that. That goes back to what I said earlier when I referenced the whole idea of things being ongoing as we deal with these issues of matters of social justice. It's not something where you say, okay, we elected the first Black senator, U.S. senator from Georgia, so we stop here, and there's no other forward movement after that. No, it is a continual struggle, so to speak, where we have to, as they would say when I was in the military, keep your head in the game, so to speak, stay focused, stay alert, and stay involved, and in a real sense, having said all of that, I'm definitely now, since I'm a civilian again, so to speak, I'm a strong advocate for social justice, and social justice is an ongoing piece. It's an ongoing journey. You cannot become complacent and feel that since this particular piece has been accomplished, that we stop here. We have to continue moving forward. And you continue moving forward by being involved and being aware of what the issues are within the community and within our nation.
One day I'll actually learn. Harvey, go on.
I believe that education is a big factor. I always felt that ignorance breeds bigotry. And I'm just wondering about, you're an educator, is the plight of the African American from slavery to the present, is it being taught in the schools enough?
That's a very solid question. I do know again, referencing the school district where I'm currently serving. I do know last year I was at the only high school in the school district where I'm currently serving. This was last school year, prior to COVID-19, so to speak. I do know that we did have an African-American teacher there who taught African-American history there at the high school. Now, to my knowledge, from last school year going into this school year where I am, that is the only emphasis that has been placed currently on African American studies. Of course, the school district where I am, we recognize Black History Month, which of course is next month, in the month of February. We recognize that, but where I'm currently serving, I do know that at the high school in the district where I serve, there is a class for students to attend in terms of African American studies. How much emphasis in terms of emphasis being placed on that throughout the state of New Jersey, I'm not too certain if that's strongly emphasized right now.
So maybe one final question. I know somebody's going to send me an email tonight that's going to read, Rabbi, I just wanted to ask. Well, save yourself writing the email and ask the question now. This is your opportunity, which is fading away very quickly. Carol, go on.
Reverend, first, again, thank you very much for educating us and inspiring us tonight. You mentioned reaching out to the traditional Black colleges for information. How about locally? How about, Bucks, Montgomery? Are there organizations? Are there people? Are there churches? Are there people we should be talking to be supportive, to learn and be supportive? Maybe as individuals, as a synagogue? Who do we turn to?
Yes.
To offer.
Yes, that's a very good question, Mrs. Gershon. They're in the Bucks County area. I do know of our previous conversation some weeks ago. Of course, we referenced the NAACP and reaching out to the local president there. Now, I don't know of any other organizations there in the Bucks County area currently, but I am familiar with the NAACP there in the Bucks County area, and I would say definitely partner with the NAACP there in Bucks County, partner with the president there, and I am confident that the president would be able to lead you in the right direction in terms of reaching out to other organizations there in the Bucks County area.
Terrific. Thank you.
So for those of us who watched the inauguration today, and we smiled from the beginning until the end, which is really no end, but a new beginning, we heard some great voices, starting with Lady Gaga and J-Lo and Garth Brooks. We got to see him without his hat on. But the superstar today is a young lady by the name of Amanda Gurin. There is somebody to watch. She is going places. Poet laureate of the United States. And I read something where she said, I've been practicing this hundreds and hundreds of times because I have a speech impediment. You didn't find any speech impediment today. She really rose that entire experience to a higher level. Reverend, we are so thankful to have you here tonight with, it's your mother who's here?
Yes, my mother and also my aunt. I see my aunt Roberta in Atlanta. My mother, Dr. Alice Hinsley. They're both in Atlanta right now. And
Wow.
my mother, she's on the line. Dr. Alice Hinsley and my aunt Roberta Rhodes, she's on the line. And my aunt happens to be the sorority sister of Vice President Kamala Harris. So they are sorority sisters, aka.
Dr. Hinsley, great to have you with us. Great to have you with us. Dear Aunt, great to have you with us. And other members of the church, great to have you with us.
Yes.
You know, every morning in our prayers, we thank God in a blessing where we say, "Oh God, praised are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who opens our eyes." Well, tonight, Reverend, you opened our eyes. And by opening our eyes, you touched our hearts. And by touching our hearts, I feel that you've moved us to moving forward with some action. So this is a most, my God, Martin Luther King Day on Monday and installation today. And Reverend, having you with us, opening our eyes, touching our hearts, moving us to action tonight. What a week we're having. So our deepest thanks to you. Our thanks to you, Carol, for all the work that you put into this and having Reverend with us tonight. But Reverend, God bless you, and hopefully we'll continue this conversation in the future.
That sounds good, Rabbi Pearlstein. I want to take this time before we end. I do want to acknowledge my members that I see who are on the line right now that I can see. Again, just want to acknowledge that some others have come on. Of course, Sister Erlene Gaskins, she's here. Good to see her. Dr. Trina Reed is here. Also, Sister Charmaine Sutler Milligan, she's here. And another member of mine, Sister Rachel Goffney. So I wanted to make sure that I recognize them, and my apologies if I missed anyone from New Bethel. It's not my desire to do that, but I'm able to see those individuals on the screen, and I don't want to do anything to miss my screen up here either, and all of that. But I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge my congregants who are sharing in our discussion tonight.
So, you know, Reverend, the name of your church is the New Bethel. There are many synagogues by the name of Bethel. We have one here in Yardley, which is a reference to Bethel, Beit El, the house of God in Israel. So we have many synagogues, Bethel. It's not a franchise, but there's many. And good to know that our name is your name and your name is our name.
Yes.
And with that, we can move forward to the future.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And I hope that we continue the conversation moving forward. Definitely.
Great. Great.
Thank you. All right.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Mimi.
Thank you, Mrs. Gershon.
Thank you, Reverend and Rabbi and Carol.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
everybody. This is
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Thank you. Great
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Rabbi, can you stay a little bit? I need to ask you about the recording. We can stop it now.
I can. Yeah.